For you antique car buffs, we got cars here from the 50s and way back, farther than that. There's the iconic Mustang. Some hot rods. Nice oilers on the top. This is a 56 Chrysler with the big Hemi engine in it. And the only reason I'm taking a picture of this is this was the Kiekhofer car, or Kiekhofer. And my mother went to school with Carl Kiekhofer in Wisconsin. And that would have been way back in the 20s or something like that. But Carl, of course, he was responsible for Mercury Motors. And there's a picture of him there. But my mother knew Carl from school just as a child. I'm showing some of my favorite cars. They probably aren't yours, but I always had a love affair with Crosley cars, even though I never had one. And but this is the 51 Crosley Hotshot, the little sport car version. And I've owned several Crosley engines in the past, but I recently read a book on the life of Powell Crosley. If you can get a hold of that book, you will find it quite fascinating, because he in fact was more famous for radios and televisions and refrigerators, and specifically the Crosley Shelvador. Quite a unique man. This is a 1975 Fmc Motorhome, and it's belonged to CBS. If you remember the Charles Kuralt series called On the Road. He's long dead now, but I really enjoyed that series. And this is one of the earlier units that they used to film On the Road. This is a Tucker car. They only made a few of them in 1948. But the engine was in the rear. Although the Edsel was a total failure, I in fact am much more interested in Edsel Ford the man, and I haven't found anything yet in the museum in regards to him, but there, I think someplace is a big portrait of him in oils. Henry Ford's son. This is a 49 Vw Beetle. You know, Hitler was only dead 5 years when they made this, maybe 4 years, but so old. Remember the split rear window? And the tail lights are smaller than what I had on a bicycle. And people laughed at it until 15 million were sold. This is a 1932 Ford V8 Flathead. Look at the way it's made. Well, they made them for 20 years, but it sure is a tall carburetor on this. I don't think they were that way in the later models. And of course they had two water pumps, most of you know that, and the distributor right on the front. Boy, they made a lot of those. This is Henry Ford's actual original quadricycle, and you'll see them in some old archival photographs and movies. And there he is. But for you tool lovers, I think you'll find this of interest, that this tap and die set here doesn't look anything like our modern ones. Was used by Henry Ford when he was building the quadricycle. And I don't see the names on it, the manufacturer. In this display of Abraham Lincoln, amazingly enough, we will see the actual chair he was sitting in when assassinated. Something Henry bought many years ago.
The cause of America is in great measure the cause of all mankind. We have it in our power to begin the world all over again. The birthday of a new world.
And here it comes. It is now behind glass. Here it is. This is the chair that Abe Lincoln was assassinated in, and that is not said to be blood. It is hairdressing, not just from Abe, but from many men. But when I was here 40 years ago, this thing was just behind ropes where you could touch it. In fact, I touched this 40 years ago. Thank goodness they've got it protected now. It's a showing little wear. They might have to reupholster it with polyester. This will be one of my favorite exhibits, made in America, all about the Industrial Revolution. And we have here some pretty neat examples of old machinery. There's a metal planer about 1860, so they were using that in the Civil War. Look at the ornate designs. There was a lathe from 1865. Made in Boston. A gear cutter from 1850. I'm loving this. This is an 1850 gear cutter, probably made by Brown and Sharp, they say. But most interesting, and look at that dividing plate. This is a dividing head. Can you see the little holes? The hole circles. And up here is the chuck, and then you can see the gear cutter there. So that's where the actual cutting took place, right up here. And the work held in that circular chuck. I can't get any closer to show you that. And mounted on a rather elaborate ornamental type of base. Isn't that some dividing head, Dwight?
Yes.
The lighting isn't good in here, but this is a gun making machine. This is a rifling machine from about Civil War time, how they put the rifling in the barrel. And stepping on the other side is a wood copying machine. And this is the machine to put the slots and screws. And you see the screws were put in those little holes, and then over the top are the little slitting saws. The finished screws will drop out the bottom. These are all small machines for making watches, and that's a gear cutter. It's a little milling machine. An automatic screw machine. Boy, that made small screws. And then a little drill press way back there. And some other little lathes. Here's a milling machine, Brown and Sharp. With a dividing head on it. Get a load of that nice dividing head. There's an automatic screw machine by Pratt and Whitney. You see the turret, and here's all the driving mechanism for the belts. The chuck, the collet. And some of the cams. This Ingersoll milling machine from 1912, it's quite a long machine, perhaps 15 feet, was used to mill the blocks, engine blocks for the Model T, and there's the cutters, which look to be about 12 inches in diameter. And they could hold many blocks at the same time. And that's where the cutter heads go. It's rather dark in here. And over here, a cylindrical grinder, but this doesn't appear to have anything to do with Ford Motor Company. It's a Norton, but would be capable of doing crankshafts and so on. And there's the grinding wheel, which looks like it might be as much as 24 inches in diameter. You simply must come here to the Ford Museum, and we have here an exploded view of the Model T, and I don't mean on paper, but I mean exploded. I gotta back up a little bit. Showing all the parts and components. Many of you have been waiting for this exhibit, the steam engines. So let's have a look. Got a flywheel here that goes down into the floor. I suspect 12 to 15 in diameter. Look at the intricacy of some of these parts. Well, they run this engine sometimes, but we missed it This is a coreless. Here, by the way, is a cutaway of a Model T. See the planetary transmission? The 3 pedals. And of course, the magneto. This is from there's the flyball governor. This is a 300 horsepower engine with a 24-inch bore, 60-inch stroke. I don't see the size of the flywheel, but it is certainly more than 20 feet. And goes deeply into the ground there, into a well. I don't see the diameter of that listed anyplace, do you?
No.
What's the diameter of that shaft? At least 12, 14 inches? Probably about 14-inch diameter shaft. That's the end of the shaft. We're calculating the flywheel size here.
So diameter about 24 feet.
24 feet. Here's an engine from 1880. (1862) Civil War. (1867). But this beauty in white here is just absolutely gorgeous. I don't see the specs on it here, but the flywheel is huge. And it's a beam engine. But look at the cathedral castings. Goes almost to the ceiling. Got a stairs going up. This is from 1855. And I'm not sure if this one uses Watt's parallel motion. Gothic arches, they call them. And of all things, made by the Novelty Ironworks. Stroke is 72 inches, bore of 36 inches. Looks to be a compound engine. A marine engine, which sometimes didn't have flywheels, I guess because the propeller was the flywheel. Here's a model of it with the propeller on it. And I believe this is the propeller shaft, which is about 10 inches in diameter. And look at the double eccentrics there for reversing. And clear up on the top, someplace up there where you see that lever, there would have been a deck or a floor where men would have stood and operated that lever. And on the ship's telegraph it would say, reverse engines, full speed, or through with engines. Here we got a big generator marked Edison General Electric with actually it's a 3-cylinder. With generators on each end, as you can see. And it's revolving slowly. Perhaps a better view of the cylinders from this side. Must be compound, there's 3 different sizes.